All right, we are live. Players, let's play ball. Hi, everyone. This is Still Comfy with Nat and Jules. I'm your host of the evening. I'm Natalie Katona from To All the Men I've Tolerated Before, and we will be covering A League of Their Own because over on Jules's Instagram for Pop Culture Makes Me Jealous, we did the show, the Amazon Prime show. Jules, introduce yourself.
Hello, friends. I'm Julia Washington, your host of Pop Culture Makes Me Jealous, where we analyze pop culture through the lens of race or gender and sometimes both. My friends call me Jules. You may not be a friend yet.
You're either a friend or you're not a friend.
Either.
And I'm not going to tell you my other name. So you just have to guess on what you're allowed to call me. Why are you already threatening our audience?
I don't know. I'm
Is it because
feisty today.
it's Mean Girls Day? Like we're going to be
Maybe
mean girls?
I'm channeling my inner Regina George. I don't have an inner Regina George, but I could try.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm Gretchen.
Gretchen Wieners.
I'm pretty sure I'm Gretchen. No, I'm not. I've never been the person. I'm Regina, but like in a not mean way.
Then you're not Regina.
Then who am I? Because I'm usually the alpha. Like there's a whole number in the musical about being the alpha predator, apex predator, and that's who I am. I'm the apex predator.
But
Everyone
you just
takes my
said that you're
lead.
not mean.
Right,
Predators
but
are
everyone
mean.
takes my lead.
I don't know. I
Right.
don't
See, it's
know.
confusing. I guess
It's
I'm not any of them. We should have watched it to see if I would have.
who you identify. Aren't there quizzes on like BuzzFeed?
I'm
Like,
sure
who?
I'll
Which
take a.
mean girl are
Don't say
you?
BuzzFeed until they start taking my One Tree Hill notes and paying me for them. Need to email them and be like, "Do you want my stream of conscious thoughts about One Tree Hill?" All right.
I'm
Well,
googling to see if there's a mean girl quiz. Go ahead. Sorry.
I just realized that I didn't write down any facts about A League of Their Own. So let me
Like what?
pull it.
What kind of facts?
Like the don't we usually do the like
The
year that it
summary.
came out and the summary? All right.
1992.
Yep, here it
Right.
is. A League of Their Own is a movie that came out in 1992. It is 2 hours and 8 minutes long, and if you remember anything, that means it doesn't meet Natalie's rule of movies shouldn't be longer than 90 minutes. Um, Against all odds, Madonna gets to be on the poster, even though she doesn't have that many lines.
She was a big draw though.
She was a big draw. Two sisters joined the first female professional baseball league and struggle to help it succeed amid their own rivalry. Madonna is doing the most in this movie in all of the right ways.
Well, I think that was the intention of her character. All the
I'm
way May.
aware. I'm just saying that I missed it in the television show because in the television show, there was no Madonna esque character to do it all and do it all in all the ways and go all the way.
All the way May.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do love this movie so much. It's not healthy.
It's a great movie. And do you know what I realized this first go around or this go around of watching it?
Tell me.
So I thought that after like Kit pushes Dottie and Dottie loses for the peaches or whatever, that Kit and Dottie have no contact
Oh,
until they like look at each other at the like old ladies museum
50
at
years
the
later.
yeah, 50 years later at the Baseball Hall of Fame. And then I realized I was like, no,
They have a
her daughter
moment.
clearly says Auntie Kit. They've clearly fucking carried on a relationship for the entire lives. Like I thought their rivalry went so deep that they were like, and now we'll never speak again.
No, not at all.
No.
I love that moment after the fact because I think it's so crucial to the story. Because Kit finally gets her moment. Dottie's, acknowledging like you're not she's not it's not like she's saying she's the better player, but she's acknowledging like good for you, Kit. Like I'm proud of you. And they have this like really sweet sisterly moment. Excuse me.
As you know, everything about Dottie throwing the game pisses me off because I am a firm believer that if you are talented, you are allowed to be talented no matter how much it makes other people feel. And that's a huge theme in this movie where, you know, Gina Davis is naturally gorgeous Gina Davis, and I also believe that people have the right to be pretty.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm pro pretty.
Mhm.
Like, people have the right to be pretty.
Yeah.
And then she's good at baseball, and people
And it
deserve the
turns
right.
out the actress Gina Davis is also naturally good at baseball because when they
Is
were
she?
doing like the whole training and getting ready for it, because they actually played baseball in this movie. One of the trainers told her, like, you're naturally athletic.
Oh my gosh, Gina. Congratulations.
Hmm.
Also, thank God there was no CGI in this movie. I hate CGI.
Well, and I think when it comes to like certain types of CGI, it doesn't bother me, but when it comes to a sports movie,
Yeah.
like especially if you watch that sport on the regular, you can tell when it's not when it's not happening. Like they're like the way the baseballs were thrown in the Prime series, that was my number one complaint because it's like that's
Yes.
not how it looks when you play baseball.
At
That's just
all.
not a realistic visual.
And I think it's like CGI is the worst when there's like no reason for it and you know that things aren't supposed to be over the top and like perfectly fast in a straight line. And you're
Mhm.
like, why is this the choice that we made?
Yeah,
We
nobody throws like that.
we could have taught them how to throw balls,
Mhm.
or we could have dubbed them. Like, why wouldn't you have just paid a stunt person to do that?
Yeah.
Irritating.
Yeah.
But I believe that Gina Davis has the right to be pretty and talented.
Mhm.
And so Kit gets on my second note after I wrote, like, oh, I guess they did talk, was, oh my God, I don't know if even modern age grown Natalie is going to be able to get over Kit. She just has the shittiest face the entire movie.
I mean, I understand where Kit's coming from. Like when you have your parents basically saying to you your entire life, "Why aren't you like Dottie? Be quiet. You're annoying. You're obnoxious. You're taking up space and you shouldn't be." That's going to affect your psyche. That's going to put you in a position where you're not really like where you instead of like understanding what it is or realizing that it's your parents, not you, you're gonna start placing that blame on the person who is glorified all the time, right? Like,
Right.
like when she says to Dottie, like, you're always ruining, you're getting in my way. Like, I knew I was getting too good, and this is all like you're the reason this isn't working because you think I'm getting too good. Like in that moment, I was like, oh, you don't understand because you've never been allowed to experience a full range of emotions. You don't understand that it has nothing to do with Dottie
Mm-mm.
and the external elements. You've never been allowed to be away from the elements that say Dottie's the best so you can grow into who you are and the strengths that
Right.
you have.
Here. First off, I didn't. That's from Brendan Fraser.
That's from Georgia of the Jungle.
I mean,
Chapter.
everyone can still tell me their favorite Brendan Fraser moment. It's really hard to type now where I have to keep my microphone.
Oh,
Look at me go. This is so awkward.
you could do it. I believe in you.
Congratulations, live people.
Oh, friends, if you are watching us live, we don't know unless you comment. So can you let us know that you're here? We would love to know and to chat with you and to give you a shout out even.
Also, YouTube doesn't tell us who watches the replays. There's like no way to thank you publicly. So if you watch the replays, also drop a comment.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I answer the comments. What else was I going to say? Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't know. Kit's just like, she's shitty and she's shitty for a reason, but it still makes my skin crawl because I'm like, stop it, Kit. Hello.
They
Look.
can't hear you.
Oh, hi, Instagram. Look, I can't type. Let's just make our faces for Instagram.
Keep talking. They can't
All
hear
right.
you. You have to tune
my-
in to YouTube to hear what Natalie has to say.
My first point of misogyny. Can we talk about how like Marla wasn't like
Marla Hooch.
Marla Hooch, justice for Marla Hooch. She was not in any way scary ugly.
No,
She wasn't.
she was
Like
not.
the way that people reacted
Yeah.
to Marla's face, and I'm
John
like,
Lovett.
I, you
Ooh.
know, ooh,
We gotta go.
ooh, we gotta
You
go.
ain't taking her because she ain't pretty. And
I
they
did
set
love
down.
that.
I was like, that is a solid move, ladies. They
Yeah,
set down their bags and they're just like, nope, fuck you.
no,
We're not going. She's
without
a
a
great
word,
player. We're not leaving without her.
without a word. They didn't just looked at him, and he knew. But like, and it wasn't even the one joke. They make that joke 4 or 5 times. Like they don't let her show on camera. She's like all the
Yeah, it's a
way.
far back. Yeah.
Yeah, just waving.
And then there's Marla. Do we even know if it's really her? It's so far away.
It's so far away. I feel bad for Marla.
Well, and her dad do. I know my daughter isn't as pretty as these girls, but her mama died when she was whatever, and I raised her like a boy, and da da da.
And I
And
ruined her.
yeah, and I was just like, oh, honey, like
He
it's okay that you don't know how to be femme for your daughter. Like that's not
he
who you are. It's fine.
broke my heart.
Yeah,
Broke my heart.
yeah.
Like I was like, "Oh, sir, no, you probably loved her the best, and out of any of these daddies, you probably did the best job." So,
And proof positive in the scene when they're at the train station leaving, and I mean, I like that's a moment where I cry because
yeah.
she's like, "Who's gonna take care of you? I don't need to go." Da da da. And he's like, "We've literally been working for this. Like, you have to. It's gonna be fine." And I just
Yeah.
loved that moment. It was so beautiful.
It's so cute. The cutest. Like he did the thing. He's
Yeah.
being so great.
Mhm.
So justice for Marla, who, by the way, is technically the only one that we know gets laid after she
Yeah.
does her little karaoke.
Well, I mean, we know that Madonna gets laid,
Well, yeah.
but Marla's the one who finds love. And I love that twist. It's not a twist, but I love that turn for her because out of all the women and everyone's like, "Oh, they're so beautiful and they're dollies and like dirt in the skirt and show your whatever." Marla's the one that finds love. That makes me
I
so
know.
happy.
She's so sweet. Um, I thought between the charm classes that in the movie it was more of a this will be a little blip and it'll highlight that we made them take charm classes and that
Mhm.
Marla cannot walk. And then I think the show tried to make more of a statement about it.
Mhm.
But when it comes to the show and the movie, that's the only time that the show made more of a statement than the movie, because the entire time I'm like, this is where the show was supposed to make a statement and they just skipped it. This is
Mhm.
where the show was supposed to make a statement and they just skipped it.
Mhm. Yeah. You mean in the movie? This is
Yeah,
with the
in the movie, I have a
yeah.
couple written down. Let me look.
Because when she's like, nice, very nice, lovely, and
Mhm.
she gets to Marla, and
Whoop.
then the assistant's like, what do you recommend? And she's, a lot of night games.
Yeah. So like
Terrible, funny line, but also shitty.
also shitty. The Shirley Baker scene where she can't read her own name on the list.
Mhm.
And that gorgeous Helen woman comes over and
That's the
just
sister from Mad About You.
I know she's gorgeous in this
Mhm.
movie. I
Mhm.
love her. I have her name written down. Everyone was so hot in this movie except for Tom Hanks.
Well, he's supposed to be playing a washed up drunk. Like,
As we
how
know,
hot?
I love the Tom Hanks character. I
Yeah,
desperately
Jimmy
missed him in the
Dugan.
show.
Yeah.
But this movie has so much heart in it that they
Mhm.
tried to make really dramatic in the show and it just fell. And I was like, you took the heart out of my movie.
Yeah, and you're not wrong because the first time I get emotional is within the first 20, is at that Marla Hooch scene, which is what,
Mhm.
15 minutes into the movie.
Yeah.
And then you have these very emotional moments throughout the rest of the film that when I was 12 didn't necessarily like resonate the same because you're still hopeful. Life, hasn't ruined you yet. You don't know the realities of misogyny quite fully, but every time now I can't not cry or get emotional watching it because it's so beautiful with all the ways that they stand together, step up for each other, the way that like
Yes.
Jimmy Dugan even comes around towards the end of the film.
Yes.
He's just like, he's 100. And, you know, he frames it with the whole like, let's do this. I get a bonus when we get in the World Series, but he's also actually emotionally
Yeah.
invested. Like the money isn't the motivator. It's just a nice little perk.
There's so much love between the women
Mhm.
in this movie that they forgot to do in the show, even though they wanted them to all be in love with one another. And I'm like,
Right. Right.
there's like no girl win moments in the show.
Yeah.
There's no like, I see you struggling.
Yeah.
I myself am a woman as well, and I'm going to step in to stop your struggling.
I wonder too if that's because in the 90s there was a lot of that in the 90s with
Mhm.
female media and television. You know,
Yeah.
there's just a whole lot of like, and same, you know, even in the, I don't know, there was a little bit more of a hoorah kind of situation. I
Right.
feel like when I look back and reflect on earlier late 80s, early 90s television where we do sort of see more of a bond. We're going to stick together because that's the strength in numbers. This is the only way we're going to
Mhm.
survive. Whereas now, even though we talk about, well, we need to band together, it still feels very much like every man for himself.
Yeah. And I don't know, for everything that Abby Jacobson kept screaming at us that she was trying to deliver with the show, I'm like, it's like you didn't even watch the movie. Gina Davis taught you how to do this, and you just went, mm. They don't even
Oh,
help
good.
Lupita learn English, and they don't let her go to the Wizard of Oz. I'm still
Yeah.
mad.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
so
I
mad.
did think it was kind of a nice I forgot that, Tom Hanks, when the bus breaks down and she's like, "Mr. Dugan, Mr.
And he
Dugan, Mr.
grabs her.
Dugan!" And he's like, "What is it, baby?" Mwah, 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 mwah. And then they pull away and they scream and they're like, "Oh my god, what's happening?" Da, da, da. And he's like, "Oh, by the way, I loved you in The Wizard of Oz." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I forgot he said that." So I do appreciate that they went and saw The Wizard of Oz in the series because I felt like that was a cute, like a not so
Instead of
on the nose
assaulting
tie.
someone in the name of the Wizard
Yeah,
of Oz. Yeah,
which she kind of does look like the lady from
she
Wizard of Oz
does.
who
She looks
plays the
exactly
witch.
like that actress.
She looks exactly like that actress.
And
So it's
honestly,
almost like, yeah, that's an insult, but not really.
not really. Um, the movie also pissed me off about the show about something else. So when Nick Offerman steps down
Hmm.
and they just allow Abby Jacobson to coach, I was like, there's no way.
Yeah.
Like watching this movie, I realized I was like, there is no way that these men who just want to sell candy bars
Hmm.
are not going to just bring in another man to tell you all what to do.
Right.
Like,
Right.
I also think that that character needed to be there.
Yeah, because he also helps because that's their immediate first bond, right? They come in, they're
Mhm.
excited Jimmy Dugan, this famous baseball player, is going to be their coach, but turns out he's not as exciting as they
He's
thought he
rough.
would be. So that's the first thing they initially bond over is like, okay, so our coach is trash. So then that gives Gina Davis the opportunity to take the lead and be like, here's what we're doing. And so they they create that connection right away before the first game, and they don't do that in the series. It takes
No.
several episodes for the team to finally find their footing, which in baseball isn't always true because you have spring training. Not that these girls have spring training, they were
Right.
just kind of thrown into it, but you do have opportunities to like develop a relationship with your teammates, and we don't get any of that. Like, they should have bonded. Well, I don't wanna
Yeah.
say should have. I don't wanna shit all over somebody else's work. I think it was a missed opportunity to allow for the team to bond over Offerman, Nick Offerman's character not being involved.
Right. And instead he acted kind of like a foil to tear them all apart.
Yeah.
because he like completely wiped out Carson's credibility because she still tried to work with him.
Mm-hmm.
Which I understand the urge to like still try to work with your authority figure because you're like, I mean, he's the one we've got.
Yeah, and he could make or break your career, essentially.
Right.
You don't know.
Yeah. And then I don't know. It's just that when I watched the movie, it just really highlighted how there's so much more characterization in this 2-hour movie to where I truly feel for these people.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched 8 episodes of a show and I came out wanting a what's her what's the uncle's name in the A League of Their Own? You posted about him today.
Oh, oh my gosh, Bert.
Birdie. I wanted and the only thing I went was, why aren't I getting an Uncle Bert spinoff?
Yeah.
Because that actor
Yeah.
knows how to put heart into their role.
Yeah, the actor who played Bert did a really good job. Again, the series is a black show. Like
Yeah.
those white girls, I don't know what the fuck those white girls were doing, but the black
Mm-mm.
girls knew what was up. They showed
Yeah.
up, they did their role, they told the story. It was good. um and back to your movie comment about how, in those 2 hours you felt they did a really good job in A League of Their Own. I know Penny Marshall directed it. I
Right.
can't
Yeah.
remember if she wrote it too. Excuse me. They did a really good job at establishing very quickly who everybody was and what the relationships were.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's so important to do, not just in a film, but also in a television show that you don't know if you're going to get a second series.
Right.
Excuse me. Because then it helps move the story along so much quicker. Like we immediately know in the original film, Dottie and Kit have tension because Dottie's telling Kit what to do. Don't use that bat, it's too heavy for you. Remember, this one throws high ones. You don't swing at the high ones. I love the high ones. Mule, hag, like you immediately get
Mm-hmm.
a sense of the relationship and that there's going to be tension between them within those first few minutes. That does not exist in the show. It's kind of like, okay, so what's happening? Which, whatever. Again, I don't want to shit all over somebody else's work. With the film, though, the next time you get something that actually like you fully understand what's happening with these characters is Doris and May.
Yeah.
Doris, look what I can do. May, look, whatever. And then she's like, how long did it take you to do that? And except for that time I spent whatever. So you establish their relationship very quickly just by sort of observing something, and you get it. Like you've got historical context for the relationship because they've mentioned something else, and
Yeah.
all those little moments that really bring the team and give you what you need to know to fully understand. So that way, then you can dive quickly into what's going on and what the tension will be. We know the team's gunning for the World Series, but how are they going to get there? What's going to happen
And do you know what I think happened?
with the
I
backdrop of the war?
with the backdrop of the war. Do you know what I think happened with the Prime show? I think that they didn't walk the line of mimicking the show and adding to the show well. So they mimicked that scene between Rosie O'Donnell and Madonna, and
Mm-hmm.
they kind of had a little quick back and forth. But then they completely dropped that relationship after that moment until they
Yeah,
were in a
and
fight.
that introduction was a little too long because
Mhm.
with May and Doris, it's very quick. It's a very quick introduction, but you still get a lot in there. With the
Yes.
suitcase scene, it is a very long scene that feels drawn out and could have been, cut down a little bit and tightened up a little bit to get the same impact, and to piggyback on what you're saying, continue that throughout, because that's the beauty of the film. They continue those types of snippets with Doris and May throughout the entire movie. Like when there's the threat of shutting down the league, May's like, you tell that Mr. Candy guy he's not shutting me down. But you have that moment where it's like you see in Doris
Yeah.
her feel for May, because that's how they met, because she was doing dancing at Doris's dad's club. And it's like, again, a quick snippet of like, here's how we know each other. And then it gets a callback when the league's threatening to shut him down.
And it gets called back again when Doris's dad comes to the playoffs and he's like, May, it's great to see you doing this instead of what you're usually doing. And she's like, Daddy, stop.
Yeah, exactly. So
Don't talk to May like that. Like,
right. It's like, what? I'm here to buy you guys a steak dinner.
but another place where I think they really dropped it and they tried to make a statement with the absence of what happened in the movie was with Evelyn. So Evelyn has to have that little boy Stanwell.
Stillwell Angel.
Stillwell Angel. And he's the worst. He's
You're
a demon
gonna
child from hell.
lose.
But so Evelyn gets this letter from her husband, and he's like, our kid is the worst. He's annoying, and I'm not raising him just because you want to play baseball. And
Well, he's too busy reading the want ads.
Yeah, he's too busy reading the want ads. So she just tells a drunk Tom Hanks, like, this is how it is. I have to have my kid on the road with us. My husband is ill-equipped to raise him. And then in the Prime show, they have an Evelyn Foyle who, instead of like making the statement of, which is still very prevalent and true today, that, oh my goodness, when children are inconvenient just by existing, the woman has to take that on. Instead of making that statement again in the show, they handled the Stillwell thing by making him an absent child that the new Evelyn has fled from.
Yeah.
And I know that the statement is supposed to be this backwards, like, well, she shouldn't have had to bring her children. And it's like, yeah, but the movie made that statement by making you watch her raise a child on the baseball road.
Right.
And telling Jimmy Dugan, like, my husband's too busy being drunk like you and trying to get a job. So Stillwell has to come with me.
And the other layer of that is he's a man. We can assume maybe he's not able-bodied because he's not working, because he's reading the want ads.
Right.
So it is a time of war. We assume your husband is white and he's unemployed during a time when they are recruiting literally everybody, because every able-bodied white male is being sent overseas.
Correct.
So like, even that's a huge statement.
And the fact that he doesn't show up with grown-ups Stillwell to the museum, and they don't mention him.
Right.
So I think that's what the show kept doing. It's like, well, we'll right the wrongs of the movie because we've evolved. And we're like, we haven't evolved, though. There are still hundreds of thousands of women who give up working to pick up the slack with their kids.
Yeah, and I actually don't feel like there were wrongs with the film, because the center of the story is Dottie and Kit.
Right.
So the sisters are the crux of the story. And then the backdrop of that is, okay, now they're on a baseball team and Dottie's naturally gifted and Kit's really good too, because she's had to keep up with Dottie. And then you add the layer of the war. So like that scene where the ball gets away and there's some Black women on the side. And I've talked about this on the episode we did on Pop Culture Makes Me Jealous of A League of Their Own. And she picks up the ball and Gina Davis is like right here. And like she chucks it and it gets to what's her face, the beauty queen, to show like she's
Ellen
just
May.
she's just as talented. Like that nuance of these women were left out. But that doesn't mean they weren't talented. Like to me, that was very clear. They were left out because they were Black. Like that was a message I understood from
childhood.
jump. And so to see and it still makes me cry. It still makes me get emotional, because it's still saying we understand that this is a group of people who were left out of the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League.
Yes.
And what I think the series did do okay, again, Black story because the Max
Still
and
convinced that they had 2 writing teams.
yeah, because Max and Clance is so fleshed out because then you get the backstory of like, you know, why Black women were, and it should be understood anyway, I feel like. But again, it's like this movie isn't about the Peaches. The movie is about Kit and Dottie.
Yeah.
Whereas the Prime original is not sure who it's about.
No. At any moment. Do you know? Okay, so when it comes to Tom Hanks,
Oh, I fucking love Jimmy Dugan.
Jimmy Dugan has all of the best lines. Like
He's
because
so funny.
as I was watching the movie, all I could hear was my dad saying the lines that we love best from Jimmy Dugan.
Yeah.
Like you would just be out and about and dad would say a Jimmy Dugan line.
My favorite is avoid the clap, Jimmy
Yes.
Dugan.
When he signs
That's
the
good advice.
I wrote down, I was like, avoid the clap because we know Jimmy probably didn't. Like that's the advice he has.
Yeah.
And so Jimmy is disgusting in this movie. I mean, he redeems himself kinda at the end, but at the baseline,
growth.
he has a lot of growth, but he's still a very disgusting drunk of a human.
Mm-hmm.
Even at the end, when he redeems himself and he decides that he's like on board with Gina Davis wanting to be married or play baseball or whatever, disgusting at his core. So then I was like, well, now I'm mad that the Prime show was so sparkly. They like took out the grit on the Peaches side.
Yeah.
Like they made Nick Offerman mean, but he was like mean once. I was like, Jimmy Dugan was disgusting.
And Nick Offerman, bless his heart, but he's hey, right?
Hey.
Like he right? Like the way that he like delivers it, like he's got a very distinct face.
Yes.
So it's like, and it's expressive. So when he's delivering lines, it's just kind of like he, you know what I mean? It's like, it's interesting seeing him in things. And I don't think it's because I'm obsessed with him as Ron Swanson. I don't think it's that. I think because he's also in a couple episodes of Gilmore Girls,
Mm-hmm.
and he doesn't do it in Gilmore Girls. But since Parks and Rec, I'm seeing him consistently be like, here's this face I'm making. I don't know if I described that well.
Does he do it in Making It? My
I
favorite
only watched one
competition
episode
show.
of Making It, so I don't remember.
It's so quaint. It'll heal what ails ya.
Oh.
It's just so quaint because you know how the British Bake Off, the Great British Bake Off is beautiful television because at the end of the day, they're winning a plate. So there's no money on the line. So like if your oven goes out, you can come use my oven. If you don't know how to simmer butter, you can watch me simmer butter or whatever.
Yeah,
and everyone's just like making a crumpet.
Yeah.
Because Amy Poehler and Nick Offerman are so kind while they host that show. Even though they're all angry Americans who would rip each other apart on Top Chef, the vibe on that show is just like, oh, do you need my quilting scissors? Here, don't use those scissors. Those will be bad. Use mine.
And I feel like Amy Poehler is the type of person who's going to create a really good environment to be in anyway.
Yeah.
Like she is so silently badass. Like she's not flaunting it. She's not like making a big deal about all the really cool shit she does behind the scenes. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
she's just got such a good vibe about her.
Her and Nick refuse to be the people who tell the contestants that they're going home. They make the other 2 judges do it. They like,
oh, I love
audibly stand back and they look at them and be like, now be the mean people and sell these people home.
Yeah.
And then everyone has a cuddle bottle and they cry.
I love that. Oh, I
Every
have
time
Peacock.
someone
I
goes
should
home.
look at it. I should go look at it.
It's
I
so
do
cute.
follow somebody on Instagram who was on, I think, the first season of Making It. And I knew
Mhm.
that because when I found her on Instagram, I was like, she looks really familiar. And then I started following her because she was delightful.
Yeah.
And then she talked about being on Making It. I was like, oh, I knew it was her.
Yeah.
And then she had shared a photo. And I was like, oh, that's why I didn't recognize her. Her weight had changed. So I
Yeah.
didn't recognize her immediately because she was light, um, thinner
Thinner.
at the time that I found her.
Mhm.
So yeah, I was like, oh, I fucking love you.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, Making It, I mean, it's a beautiful show. It's a
Okay.
beautiful show. And that's why I love Nick Offerman and why I was excited that he was in the Prime
The new
show,
one. I just
and then
don't
they
think they
barely
used
used
him.
him.
Yeah.
I was like, you didn't even
'Cause
let Offerman be Offerman.
because you could still use that character who's obsessed with the one knuckleball thing or whatever. Like there was
Mhm.
opportunity there for a story arc for him throughout all 8 episodes that I think didn't get tapped into.
Right. And then so back to my dad just like quoting
Jimmy
like
Dugan.
well Jimmy Dugan and just the movie when the charm lady is like eyebrows there should be two. I was like, oh, I remember my dad telling me that. He's like, Natalie, eyebrows. It was when he started letting his sister wax my eyebrows,
Mm,
and then he just felt like he had the right to comment
mm.
when that had gone on too long. By the way, these are my natural eyebrows. I haven't waxed or plucked.
So you never had a uni?
No, I mean like if I rub it, yeah, there's hair, but there's hair on your entire face.
Right.
You know, that's what I'm saying. Like we're normalizing women's hair.
Yeah.
I have hair everywhere.
Yeah.
And it is a chore to wax, to shave, to all of it. And then afterwards, you're like, I even get an orgasm out of that. Like, I spent 45 minutes shaving. My water went from hot to cold to hot again. And at the end of it, you were bad in bed.
That's just unfortunate.
Isn't it, though?
Mhm.
Isn't it, though?
It really is.
Ingrown hairs and everything. But my dad used to tell me, like, eyebrows, there should be two. And, like, here I am rubbing my eyebrow to be like, they've never. I mean, I'll ask Stephanie. Stephanie, when you watch the replay, comment for everyone to know if whether or not I had a unibrow and I'm just not remembering. But where would it have gone now? Now that I'm in my 30s, it just went, I outgrew my unibrow.
Well, if you're doing waxing, like, okay, so look at my eyebrows.
Yeah.
These are not my natural shape. This is not my natural eyebrow.
Okay.
Like everyone in the early 2000s, I
Yeah.
went from
You penciled
having
it.
No, I didn't pencil it. I just tweezed it so far down
Yeah.
that it mutinied and was like, "We're dead.
You've killed the
Like,
cells.
you've killed this space."
Yeah.
And now I kind of wish I hadn't. So like part of me is like my eyebrows should naturally come to here
Mm-hmm.
and they won't even grow in right here at all.
Wow.
And it's like and one's further back than the other. Like it's a whole I'm just like, why did my mother she didn't let me. I just did it. But I wish that somebody had been like Julia, but it was
Julia.
2001 and thin
And it
eyebrows
was
were
the
in.
style.
Mhm.
I just like I never did them very thin. Like they were probably like a little bit thinner than this. But so my eyebrows, like my eyelashes are also very long.
And
Like
like tweezing on top, I tweezed on top, which
yeah,
apparently you're not
you're
supposed to
not
do.
supposed to do.
I missed
Um
that episode of Cosmo or that copy of Cosmo.
so the thing about my eyebrows is my eyelashes are long and so is each individual eyebrow hair.
Okay.
So when you get into this territory, there still looks like there's a lot of eyebrow, but it's like 5 strands because they're so
Yeah.
long that they just carry the rest of the brow.
Yeah, I get that.
So then we'd wax and I would lose not only like definition of my
All of
eyebrow,
it.
but I'd like lose half of it and be
Yeah.
like, where that half of your eyebrow went.
I decided that it needed to be waxed off on accident.
Yeah.
I'm trying to
Yeah.
find my original eyebrow because I think I posted about
My
it.
original eyebrow.
Yeah, because I think I posted about it because when we did the high school episodes, I had here we go. I had my guests send me pictures from high school. There's my original eyebrows.
There it is. I remember this. Yeah. Beautiful.
Great canvas to work with. Also, my child got these exact eyebrows. So whenever I look at him, I'm always just like, I'm so jealous.
Right. I hope that all of the Gen Zers out there keep their eyebrows. Keep your eyebrows. Heroin chic fashion is coming back. Keep your love handles and keep your eyebrows because you will want them back.
Why is heroin chic coming back? Didn't we
Because
love our-
everything eventually comes back, and we're in a period of time where we hate women the most.
Did no one else watch the Victoria's Secret docuseries on Hulu? Like, don't
Right.
cave to the men.
Don't cave to it. Speaking of men, can we talk about how the only reason why we got a women's league is because men were like, there's a war. How will we sell candy?
Yeah, actually, and that's pretty true to life. It was Wrigley, the guy who started Wrigley Gum. He's the one who kind of spearheaded the All-American Girls Baseball Professional Baseball League.
So it wasn't because like, oh no, America needs a hobby. We're so down in the dumps. It's like, I have to sell gum. I have numbers that I need to sell gum.
Well, I mean, Wrigley Field is named after him because he gave a ton of money and was like, build it.
Build it. It's mine.
Make it happen. And if you've noticed, they're one of the few stadiums left that isn't named after some weird shit. I'm looking at UPNC Park.
Is that one by me?
Yeah, it's in Cleveland.
Yeah.
That's where the Guardians play.
I don't remember what we renamed one of the oh yes I do. We have like the Virgin Mobile one because is that what John Cusack and Joan Cusack used to advertise for?
Did they do phone commercials? I don't recall that.
Yeah, they did. Also,
that's interesting.
How cute is Ann Cusack as Shirley Baker?
I know.
Just beautiful and cute as a button.
Yeah.
Everyone in this movie is so hot except for Tom Hanks.
I don't know. He's got some kind of appeal to him for being like, as he cleans up through the movie.
He doesn't actually fully clean up during the movie.
No, but he does have a vibe that you're just like, okay, like you're better-ish.
And then once he starts to get better adjacent, fine ass Bill Pullman comes to town and you're like, oh my God, Bill Pullman.
You know, I want While You Were Sleeping to happen to me like so bad.
Yeah.
His kid was in Top Gun Maverick. I was like, why does this guy look like he's a Bill Pullman light? And it's the one with the glasses. And I was like, this is going to make me, I got to look, right? Thank you, IMDb. So I looked it up and I was like, oh my God, you're Bill Pullman's son. I see it. I feel really uncomfortable now because I also think you're cute. And now this is a weird phase of life to be in.
This is a weird conjecture. When fucking good looking Bill Pullman, and that's where they really missed the mark with the TV show. They didn't find anyone as fine as Bill Pullman to be the husband.
I love when he walks in and he's like, hiya, cutie.
And he's just in the door holding a hat.
And we're on the heels of Betty Spaghetti's husband being dead.
He
and
died.
The emotion that you see in Gina Davis's face, the concern, the worry, you're holding
so good
with her. You are very concerned. Tom is walking slowly to both of them. They're sitting next to each other. Which one is it? Oh my God, I can't take it anymore. Betty, I'm so sorry. It's George. She just can't.
She can't play.
And then we go through, get them home, and Gina Davis is bawling because she's held all of these emotions about her husband being in the war. She can't take it anymore. That was her breaking point. And who walks in?
But fine ass Bill Pullman, looking the best he's ever looked.
And she's like, I look terrible. And he's like, you are the most beautiful thing I've ever seen.
Bill Pullman is probably the reason why I wanted to be an army wife. That and that trashy show on Lifetime. I was like, look at him with that hat and the
So
khaki.
fucking
And
sexy.
then like Tom Hanks sees Bill Pullman. And like, I think when I was a kid, because everything was supposed to be like romance centered if it was
Mhm.
about women, I was like,
Mhm.
well, clearly Gina Davis and Tom Hanks had a really inappropriate crush on one another. That's what happens in all of the movies. And this go around, I was like, no, you were just conditioned to believe that they should have had a crush on one another. They just mutually understood one another.
Yep. Yep. Totally, because they could have been a dynamite team had Dottie stayed in the league
Correct.
because she's a solid player. I mean, he's told her multiple times you're the best damn player in the league. And he knows the sport inside out. And so like the way that she makes him better, it's not as a romantic partner, it's as a friend who cares because Gina Davis makes because Dottie Henson made everybody better.
Better. Yeah. When she doesn't want to go out drinking with them because she's a nice married lady, but she immediately gets word that they're about to get caught, so she drags them all out of the bar, including a singing in love Marla.
And doesn't say they'll kick you out of the league. She says they'll kick us
Us
out of
out
the
of the
league.
league. Yeah.
So she doesn't see herself as an individual unit. She sees herself as part of a team.
Which is something else that was missing from the Prime show. I don't think that anyone on the Peaches side of the world in that show thought of anyone as an us. It wasn't the team, it wasn't all of us. It was this is my shot, this is my secret, this is what will get me kicked out of the league.
Until Joe gets traded. And then they're
Yeah,
like, oh, we need her. We're a team. I was like,
in
have
the
you been a
last
team this
episode.
entire time? Because
Yeah,
I missed it.
I missed it. I missed it. I missed when you all liked one another. Um God, Gina Davis is so good in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
She's
yeah.
fantastic. Do you remember when she had her own show? The Gina
I
Davis show?
do. Yeah, I used to watch it. She'd always have like high-waisted pants on.
Yeah.
I love Gina Davis. Um, and God, the movie is so good. And even when Bill Pullman comes back to town, like Tom Hanks does a double take, probably because Tom Hanks is also like, that is the finest man I've ever seen. I
Yeah.
have traveled the world with other men in baseball uniforms.
Yeah.
And you, sir, you are what a man should be. And
Mhm.
honestly, I would probably quit baseball if it meant going home with you.
Yep.
And he just knows. He knows there's like, and I also like that where he walks up to her because she's clearly packing up to go. And he's like, so this is it? And
Mhm.
she's like, yeah, we're going to go home. We're going to have babies. And he's like, okay. And like he knows he's in a position where he can push very hard to make her stay, but he
Mhm.
also knows he's in no position to do that. So he says his like check in and then he goes back into the bus.
Yeah. Doesn't he come back and give her a speech?
Oh, maybe he does. I
Yeah,
don't
he's
know.
like, "You're gonna regret it," and da da da, and all these things. Like, you can go back to Oregon and do that, and you have all the time in the world to do that. But this right here, right
No.
now, da da da.
And here's the thing about the going home to have babies. Clearly, Kit had a buttload of babies. Like, she shows up to that museum with a buttload of a family. Gina Davis went by herself. There were one baby, like, packed her a suitcase. I was like, Gina, you could have had it all. You could have done the baseball. You could have continued to fuck Bill Pullman, and you could have had a lot of babies.
You know, did you ever see? Oh shit, what was it called? Keep talking. I'm gonna find it because it was the one thing I saw Bill Pullman in that made me the most uncomfortable, and I was really upset
Oh no,
because
Bill
my friend was
Pullman.
like, "You have to watch this show with me," blah blah blah. And it's like, "Fine, I
No,
will," because I'm familiar with this franchise you're talking about. I understand what's happening, blah blah. Even
I
though I don't
need
watch
Bill
it.
Pullman to always be a nice man.
And then I watched this show with my friend,
No, Bill
and I
Pullman.
was like, one, this shit could really happen. So I'm really upset that you made me watch it. Two, I do not like
No one wants to watch Bill Pullman be a bad, bad man. Did you know on the IMDb they list their baseball positions? I thought that was
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah, they do that in the end credits too.
That's awesome. Like, I was like, what a nod to people who understand baseball.
Was it? Wait a minute. Was it called Torchwood? Yeah, it's Torchwood.
Oh, I didn't
I didn't
watch
realize it was
Torchwood.
from 2011. No, but it's like I don't remember there being 41 episodes.
Well, maybe you didn't watch all of it because it made Bill Pullman a bad man.
No, because there's like a mini. Oh, you know what it is? I know why. 2011 Miracle Day. That's why. Torchwood Miracle Day series 4 is like it's a separate series. It's the same series Torchwood, but then it's like 2 years later Miracle 2, and so it's a whole thing. So I only watched Torchwood Miracle Day. And he is not a good person in it, and it was like I turned to my friend and was like, I can't believe you fucking ruined Bill Pullman for me.
I can't. Who wants to ruin Bill fucking Pullman?
I was so mad. I was
So
so
mad.
freaking mad. But then he redeemed himself by being in. What was he in that I loved recently?
Oh, I want to talk about
The High Note.
oh yeah, I want to talk about Death Delivery Guy and
Oh,
how rude and awful he is.
I have to have a name. There's no name on this list.
Well,
this is the federal government.
Number one, he's just like narrating the fact that someone's gonna die. He's like, oh God, you know,
the government couldn't even send you somebody in
today's
person.
not a good day for me.
Yeah.
Today's not a good day for me. I gotta tell you that your husband's dead. And I was like, I want Tom Hanks to kill this man. But then again, I was like, this is something else that the show kind of tried to address and then glossed over was the realities of fucking war.
Yeah.
Because how many women did have just a bumbling idiot be like, it's a death telegram.
Yeah. Again, I think they did an okay job with it on Max and Clance's side.
Yeah.
When Clance's husband gets recruited and she's like, this is scary because, you know, Black soldiers aren't treated the same and like all those things. But the other thing that I think was really that I picked up on this time that I haven't picked up in years past, because I think we forget, they rebranded. It's not the War Department anymore, but at the time they were, you know, the Department of War. Now it's the Department of Defense.
Oh.
And I can't remember when that switch happened over, but they did a whole rebranding.
One of my other favorite lines,
less scary.
One of my other favorite lines is when everyone has a turn telling Evelyn to keep that kid away from them, except for Gina Davis, who tells her, I hope I have 5 just like him.
The consummate professional, the consummate
I hope I have
woman.
5. It's one of the funniest lines when she goes, I hope I have 5 just like him.
Yeah. This movie's brilliant. The deliveries of the comedic timing, the dialogue, like all of it. Tom Hanks, when Rosie O'Donnell had her own show, Tom Hanks was on and they were talking about, you know, filming together, blah, blah. And he's like, yeah, you know, they're talking about their favorite scenes. He's like, well, my favorite scene is you know, I'm going to show you. So they show a clip. It's not in the actual movie, I don't think. And it's Rosie running out to the outfield and she slips.
And did Tom bring it or did Rosie go, this one's my favorite?
No, Tom brought it.
Tom brought it. He's like, here's my favorite clip. It's you eating it. My favorite line of the movie is when Madonna is trying to convince Gina Davis, here's the thing, like we hit a home run. I flash my bosom. My bosom falls out. And Rosie O'Donnell just looks at her and goes, do you think there's a man in this country who hasn't seen your bosoms? May. And she's like so concerned. May, do you think there's a man in this country who hasn't seen your bosoms?
So funny.
And like
There's
she,
so many lines that are
she's
funny.
not even being ironic about it. She's like, okay, Dottie, I'm just saying I'm running. Okay. I'm running and it just comes out. And
It pops open.
it just pops open because they're that desperate to do anything they can to help the
To
league.
save the league.
To save the league. And then it's like titties, kisses for foul balls with Ellen May, who somehow got hotter in this rewatch of the movie. I was like, is Ellen May prettier than I remember her to be?
So funny.
And then like they tried to touch that.
Oh,
Ag-
go ahead.
Again, they were really heavy-handed in the let's make a point about women, and then they didn't make a point at all because they took out all of the context of the movie.
Yeah. So when you and I were talking about the Jimmy Dugan checking in with Gina Davis when she was
Yeah.
leaving, I found the transcript. It's like, I know he gave her a speech.
He gave her a speech.
He says, taking a day trip. Dottie, no, Bob and I are driving home to Oregon. Jimmy, long pause. You know, I really thought you were a ball player. Dottie, well, you were wrong. Was I? Dottie, yeah, it's only a game, Jimmy. It's only a game. And I don't need this. I have Bob. I don't need this at all. Jimmy, I gave away 5 years at the end of my career drinking. 5 years. And now there isn't anything I wouldn't give to get back any day of it. Dottie, well, we're different. Jimmy, this is chicken shit, Dottie. If you want to go back to Oregon and make 100 babies, great. I'm in no position to tell anyone how to live. But sneaking out like this, quitting, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. Baseball is what gets inside you. It's what lights you up. You can't deny that. Dottie, it just got too hard. Jimmy, it's supposed to be hard. If it wasn't hard, everyone would do it. The hard is what makes it great.
There's no crying in baseball. Ugh. This movie's a great movie. I wish the show would have been great.
You know, it's one of those things in life. This sounds so terrible, and I'm just an asshole. But it's one of those moments in life when I regret not just saying like "fuck you" to everybody and taking my baby and moving to LA and trying to have a career, because in my mind I had this show built.
Yeah.
For the last 30 years, I've been building this show in my head. What would I do to honor the stories that didn't get to be a part of the All-American Girls Baseball League?
Yeah.
What would I do to honor the league in general, the impact, the influence? My grandmother was the right age for all of this stuff during that time. And she's not a sports person, but but we grew up, my grandfathers, both of them loved baseball. We grew up watching baseball. And so I appreciate that Abby Jacobson's version had so many people who are queer in the cast, and that is wonderful. It also, when you go back and watch the original and then compare the two, the original still stands taller because you have so much heart. You really do feel it. You really do understand it. Like when the guy's like, what do you mean you're shutting it down? Like the board, and Gary Marshall's like, the war's ending, the boys are coming back, like, we're sorry. And he's like, oh, I guess this is how it's going to be in the factories too. Like, okay, Rosie, turn in your rivets. We tell these women to get out of the kitchen. It's their American duty to do this and help their country. And now we're just going to send them back to the kitchen. And Gary Marshall, you want us to send the boys coming back from war to the kitchen? Like, that snapshot of what America was like when it came to the conversation about women was so impactful to me as a child. Not even as a child, because the movie came out when I was 8. So yeah, a child. That it highlighted to me that it wasn't as glamorous as these memory shows were doing. Like, to me, A League of Their Own was literally saying, it's cute that you guys want to like God complex what was going on with women standing tall. Here's a harsh dose with a lot of heart of how it felt to be in that era. And it
Yeah.
helped me understand my grandmothers better.
Well,
Always
and I
have your own money. Don't rely on your husband necessarily. It's okay to try and do something that you want to do with your life. Don't worry about getting married. Make sure you're educated. Like all the messages they gave me, I think I understood where it came from because of this movie.
well, and I think a bigger slap in the face is they wanted us to be grateful that they
Mhm.
had to rely on us during the war.
Right.
So it's like, not only are you relying on us during the war because you've shipped everyone else that you usually rely on out,
Mhm.
but then you want us to be like, well, thank you, sir, for letting me play baseball. Thank you. I really love my new riveting gun. Like, no.
And
They wanted us
that's
to, they wanted,
captured in May's speech.
yeah,
You're not shutting me down.
that's right. And at the end of the day, like, I think A League of Their Own highlighted that, you know, and I do think we should go. I wanna go see them at the Baseball Hall of Fame if that exhibit is actually a thing.
Yeah, it was. I don't know if it's still standing, but it was for sure. I think that actually I think the time it opened was earlier. I think the exhibit opened in like the late 80s.
Mhm.
But I'm pretty sure it's still part of the
But it's one
I
of
do
those.
want to go to Cooperstown. That is a real thing on my bucket list is to go to Cooperstown.
I think what it is like A League of Their Own took these monoliths where it's like, these are our heroes. These are the
Mhm.
women, and Rosie Riveters and all of it, and it made them your mom, or
Yeah.
it's your aunt playing baseball. And now I'm going to be an asshole, and I'm gonna sound just like my mom when I say that the Amazon Prime show was just trying to shove points down my throat.
Mhm.
That, like, these people matter. Yeah, I knew that they mattered. I wanted them to matter to me.
And it's interesting because I feel like that's a lot of television and movies these days. It's a
Mhm.
lot of like, here's a very pointed, not so subtle message, heavy handed, nail it on the head. Whereas, with A League of Their Own, there's a lot of messaging, but there's also a lot of nuance.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And there's a lot of stuff that we grew up with watching in the 90s and some of the 80s, not really, but the 90s, where it was like, here's heavy messaging, but you don't feel like you're being preached at
Right.
because it's nuanced. And we're getting a lot of preachy shit right now. And that's really hard because, like, I was just, again, I have this conversation with my friend Nikki all the time. You can stop telling me that my people were enslaved. Give me other
Correct.
shit.
Right.
Because it's becoming more and more aggressive over time. Like the message of we were enslaved
Right.
feels like it's becoming more and more aggressive over time. And
Like,
that's hard for me. Like,
right, we're
so,
currently reminding white people that we killed Emmett Till. And it's
you
like, I
know,
I know that we killed Emmett Till over a lie. I also didn't need that lady to say it on her deathbed.
and there's a way, I don't know, like the Malcolm X movie was so good
Yeah.
and it wasn't preachy. At least to me, it didn't feel preachy. I also didn't grow up during Malcolm X, right? Like I'm coming in
Mhm.
after Malcolm X's death. I read his autobiography, but watching the movie, it didn't feel like a heavy-handed message of this is what Malcolm X was about. It felt like this is what Malcolm X was about. This is his life. Here
Well,
you go.
it's
It felt like a biopic. It felt informational. It didn't feel like, "You motherfuckers don't
right.
understand Malcolm X."
Yeah. And I think what ends up happening too is the people who get it, but then you're just literally pissing off the people who don't get it, and now
Yeah,
they're loud.
yeah.
And it's like, I don't need them to be loud about anything else. Please make them feel something for the people that they're watching on screen so
Mhm.
they empathize with the
Yeah.
people who surround them.
Right. That's a huge part of it, and I feel like a lot of that is missing nowadays. And I
Yeah.
think that's probably why I'm always gravitating towards Marvel movies because it It's a superhero storyline. I'm sure if you wanted to get deep about it, you can get deep about it. But at the end of the day, like, you can be superficial about it.
Yeah. And there's an art to subtleness
Mm-hmm.
that when it is absent, you notice where it's
Yeah.
like, my God, you're just hitting me over the head with it. And it makes your characters one dimensional.
Yeah.
What did we know about Carson? She liked making out with Greta. The end.
Mm-hmm.
What did we know about Greta? She felt shame because she liked making out with women. The end.
Yeah.
And the,
Compared to, sorry, go ahead, finish your thought.
compared to the way that Doris's dad not accidentally, unintentionally slut shames May,
Mm-hmm.
that happens. Your dad is always accidentally slut shaming someone, and you have to be like, hey, you could have kept that one to yourself.
Mm-hmm. And even further than that, too, with Dottie and Kit, you understand Kit feels overshadowed by Dottie. With Dottie, you understand she's conflicted. She loves playing, she loves her sister, she loves her husband. But a woman's place in her mind, she's not. And I felt like this movie was her trying to deal with her desire to want more, her desire of wanting more, but her obligation of what a good woman does in 1941.
And I think what happens in the Prime show is that Abby Jacobson made it almost too easy for the women to have their way as if it was 2022. Oh, Nick
Mm.
Offerman quit. We don't need to rehire him. Oh, Carson's husband comes back. Good news. He's going to say that he doesn't need a baby right away and she can keep playing. And it's like that feels unrealistic to me.
Yeah, because there's a level of so like historical fiction,
Mhm.
right, is a whole genre, and there is a level where how are you true to what was happening at the time
Correct.
and then playing a new game. So like Bridgerton, I think with their colorblind casting does a really good job because it's based on fake shit,
Yeah.
right? The aristocracy is real, but the Bridgertons are fucking fake.
Right.
So it doesn't matter if Queen Charlotte is black or not because it's a fucking fake thing. The All-American Girls Baseball League is real. So to tie in things that are true to the time but
Right.
still manage to keep my air conditioning just turned on and all my doors and windows are open. Shit.
Oh, yikes.
Anyway, it's gonna be fine. So staying true to the time, but still being able to make it not feel like you're reinforcing negative stereotypes.
Correct.
I feel like the 92 version does that.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's, I think, a lot of like, okay, can I just not to be a tangent, but everyone's losing their shit about Blonde right now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, first of all, it's not a biopic.
No.
Anybody who read the book will tell you it's in the fiction section of the bookstore.
Correct.
This is not a true to Marilyn Monroe's life story.
She didn't sign off on this.
She didn't. Her estate, not super thrilled. They're like, okay, it's good. Meh. But that's another example of like,
Right.
this is fiction. There's creative license here. However, because it's a real person, there is a weird line where you have to balance delicately because there are some things that just are factually inaccurate that happen in this movie. Like she doesn't die before or she doesn't die after Cass Chaplin. He dies 6 years after she dies.
Mm-hmm.
And like, there's little things like that where I'm just like, okay, it's fake. It's fake. It's fake. But then somebody on Instagram sent me a DM because I was like bitching about like people being so upset about this biopic. I'm like, it's not a biopic. Stop calling it a biopic.
Right.
And they were like, it's being marketed like a biopic.
It is.
And I was like, shit, I guess because I read the book 20 years ago, I walked into knowing it's not a biopic.
It is literally being marketed like they are telling Marilyn's story as if
Yeah.
Marilyn gets to.
No, this is Joyce Carol Oates' imagination of Marilyn Monroe's life. That's what this is.
And then my urging to Joyce Carol Oates is, why didn't you just do what anyone does? Tell Marilyn Monroe's story without naming her Marilyn. Marilyn Monroe wasn't the only woman abused by the system around her, Hollywood or
No.
not.
No.
So, like, there's a story there. You can
Yeah.
imagine exactly what happened with Marilyn Monroe, and we all do.
Mm-hmm.
If you wanted to tell what you assumed happened to her, name her anything but Marilyn.
Yeah.
So, like, it's just like it's a miss on everyone for me. Like Joyce Carol Oates, that's irresponsible.
And that book came out in 1999.
Right. No one wants a fictional account of Marilyn Monroe's life because the nonfiction account is horrific enough. Number two, then it's the marketing of it all to be like, that's irresponsible. One way that I think that we've seen this done right, I haven't watched the movie yet, but maybe I will now that my weekend has freed up. In The Hate U Give, I kept telling you as I was reading it, I go, they don't pull any punches, but they also don't tell me that they're not pulling punches on purpose.
Right.
It is literally a little girl living in her neighborhood through the horrific death and murder of her friend.
Yeah.
And they're not pulling any punches about what this neighborhood is like. But there's like no footnote to be like, and 3 out of 7 neighborhoods in America are like this or whatever.
Yeah.
It's literally, this is the truth.
Yeah.
And I think that A League of Their Own does that because you can't change the fact that they probably did have to make out with guys during foul balls.
1992 version.
Yeah, the 1992 version. You can't, like, you probably can't change the fact that there was a lot of, queer bias. Duh.
Yeah, there were hella laws again. And in some states, some of those laws are still on the fucking books.
Duh. Like, it's a duh for me. Like, Amazon Prime, you didn't have to, like, make that everyone's story in the show for me to be like, oh, because those issues are still happening today.
Yeah.
So why didn't you just tell me a story without making it a did you know show? Yes, I knew.
Yeah. And I think what's beautiful about certain types of storytelling that doesn't necessarily happen anymore is that it, like you're saying, the did you know doesn't exist. It's just we're plopping you in.
Yeah.
Here's a snippet. You know who does a really good job as a writer like that? Taylor Jenkins Reid. I just finished Carrie Soto is Back, who makes an appearance in Malibu Rising, which is her book that released prior to Carrie Soto is Back. And in Malibu Rising, you fucking hate Carrie Soto. She is the worst. And so when it was announced that the next book would be about her, I was like, I don't want to read about this hoe. Like, no, she sucks. By the end of the book, I was like, Carrie Soto, you're my girl, because the system was against you. You worked super hard. Everyone judged your methods. Everyone thought that you were terrible for not being more friendly, for being arrogant, all this shit. Like, so it reminded me that a little snippet of somebody in one person's lens doesn't mean that's who they are.
Right.
But to add to that, you can still have those snippets be thought-provoking, because what happened? I was mad about Carrie Soto being the main character of the next book. And then what did I do? I read the book and then I learned so much more about myself and, was reminded about the 90s. But it wasn't like, remember how shitty the 90s were towards women? It was, here's what it was like to be a woman athlete through Carrie's lens, but we're not like, it's fact rather than just being like opinion. You know what I mean? It's her facts. It like, there's literal like stats when it comes to being a tennis player that, whatever.
It's why when I have a professional on the podcast, I always make sure to also go through my own story because
Mhm.
people can like quote you facts and all of it. But unless I tell you, like, this is how my period and menstruation cycle fucks me over in the world, then why would Congress listen to me if I just go, 18 out of 22 women have horrific cramps?
Right. Right.
And I think also Thelma and Louise did that.
Yeah, such a good movie.
Because, like, Thelma and Louise is an entire movie about what happens to women after they're sexually assaulted
Mhm.
and the labels that they have to endure and the lack of support. And honestly, the manic, like, reclaiming of yourself that has to happen with some women after they are sexually assaulted. But the sexual assault happens and they almost stop bringing it up.
Yeah.
Like, it happens, and then, like, Thelma's husband is also a fucking ass. Louise. Which
Yeah.
one? Is it Thelma or
Thelma's
Louise?
husband.
Thelma's husband is a abusive ass, but it's like they show us, but they don't have to keep harping
Right.
on it.
Yeah, because they literally don't keep bringing it up. You just all you know
Yeah.
it's happened, and you remember throughout the entire film. And God, I miss that about the
I
way
miss
we
good
told
storytelling.
stories. Huh?
I know. I miss good storytelling. I miss when you could trust your audience to go there with you.
Yeah, and I told you that's why I love Steve Martin, because whenever I
Mhm.
see him do stand-up or whatever, he just assumes everyone in his audience is intelligent, or not even we shouldn't even say intelligent because that's not fair. He just assumed he just goes into it. He's
Yeah.
like, "If you've been following my career, then you know where I'm at, so here's my." He doesn't, you know what I mean? It's very
Mhm.
like, "Here's my
I've
show."
I've noticed this new trend in stand-up comedy, especially with new material, where, like, people get up and they tell you why you're going to be offended or why you shouldn't be offended before they deliver the joke, and I'm like, if you would just deliver the joke, people might forget that we're offended people from time to time. Like, just say the
Yeah.
joke.
It really actually kind of bothers me too when people are like, "Oh, we can't have comedy and satire anymore," and da, da, da. And I was like, "Well, that's not always the case. Like, consider the kind of comedy you're doing. Is it
Yeah.
trash, like toilet bathroom humor?" Because what stands the test of time is like, because observational comedy is really big, right? Like everybody's that's like a
Mhm.
huge thing right now, which is fine. But there's elements of observational comedy that are just, like, always gonna be funny.
Right.
Periods are always gonna be funny,
Yeah.
right? Like, uteruses are always gonna bleed, so there's always gonna be something funny about that. But
There's
I
always
think
gonna be someone in the room who likes a poop joke.
yeah, and if you have a well done poop joke that isn't
Yeah.
just, like, kinda there's a I don't know, there's, like, a level, and I think it's hard because then I think when people say things like, "Well, being politically correct is just ruining comedy," and I'm like, "No, your stupidity is ruining comedy." Like,
Right.
you don't know how to write a funny joke
It's
that
because no
can't
one reads
exploit
anymore.
somebody. Yeah,
Yeah.
like, you're just exploiting people. There's a difference
You're
between
just
exploiting
punching
people.
down.
Mhm.
There is a way to tease people and still punch up. I'm
Yes.
trying to think of who. I mean, Taylor Tomlinson does a really good job of making the joke be about someone else, but she's actually the butt of the joke.
Yeah, John, fuck, Mulaney.
I was
He's
gonna
good
say
at
my friend John Mulaney.
yeah. I was like, "Why did I forget his last name?" I almost said Malkovich, that's not right.
That's not right. Yeah, John
Mm-mm.
Mulaney, he does a really great job of making the joke anyone who isn't him, and yet at the end of the joke, you still know he's the butt of the joke.
Yeah, yeah,
He's not making jokes at people's expenses.
yeah.
He is explaining, "This is why I'm fucked up, because when these people do this, I can't feel the correct way about
Right,
it."
right. Yeah, yeah, and that's the difference, like, when I watched going back to Steve Martin because he's pretty much the comedian I've been following my whole life. I watched his special with Martin Short, and maybe I told you the story already. Like, Steve Martin's telling jokes, and I'm like, "Oh, that shit's gonna be funny to my kid, to me, to my dad. Martin Short's making jokes that are only going to be funny to me because he's making fun of the Kardashians.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's why, Saturday Night Live is a huge show, and it's probably always going to be a huge show.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't watch all of Saturday Night Live because it is all about what happened that previous week or this
Yeah,
month
I just, with the advent of, Instagram doing video, I only watch the sketches now on Instagram, and then I queue up Weekend Update to watch Weekend Update only on Sunday morning.
See?
Because I think that Colin Jost and Michael Che are so fucking funny.
They are
together.
funny. And, there's just, I don't know. People have to start reading again so they understand story structure.
Seriously, because it's really getting like...
Because as people read less, our ability to tell stories also diminishes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's like what we were talking... I almost said... I didn't say this to you last night. I thought I did, and then I went back and listened to our messages, and I realized I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Oral history, that is all my people have ever had.
Correct.
For the longest time. It was literally against the law to educate an enslaved person. Mm-hmm. And then once enslavement, slavery ends, then you have other types of laws that prevent us from being educated, right?
Yes.
So we only had oral history, which is why the Black community has honed that spoken word art so well, because we've been doing it for centuries.
And now I know the connection because I complained about people who do bad spoken word. I'm like,
and I didn't want to be like, you were complaining, but we've been doing it for centuries. So like when you get storytellers who do it so well, this is why it's so heartbreaking sometimes too when there aren't more Black authors published, because it's like it's literally in our blood.
Yeah. Well, and I think there are people who are storytellers, and then there are people who know things.
Yeah.
And it's like, one isn't always the same.
True. 100% true. It's like when I was telling you when I saw the Emmett Till trailer, and I was like, I can't, and I think I shared it with book club. Like my family, my grandmother told this story to us like it was our relative.
Yeah.
Like this was a cautionary tale. This was a tale of this is how the world we're living in. Like it didn't matter that he wasn't my kin. My grandmother told us that story like he was.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why I will not be seeing the movie, because why would I open that trauma? Because she shared that story like it was a firsthand experience for herself.
Yeah.
But other people, white people who don't believe in racism, should go see it.
They won't, though.
I know.
I don't know who the Emmett Till movie is for. It's probably for white people who really want to feel like they're doing the thing.
Yeah, I don't know.
But yeah, I see it. I see as people like stop reading. Like the reading gap really bothers me. We don't teach kids how to read correctly anymore. Did your kid still have phonics as part of his curriculum?
I want to say yes, but also at the same time, because my mom was a librarian when we were kids and she was a preschool teacher, like phonics was just kind of...
That's right. You taught him how to read, and that's why he knows how to read.
Yeah, because it was just all kind... And I taught adult education myself, and I relied heavily on phonics. Even when the curriculum moved away from phonics, I still brought phonics in. I don't think I know how to teach somebody without phonics, to be honest.
Guess what? In all of the schools, maybe not all the schools, but in a majority of the schools in the USA, kindergartners and children aren't being taught phonics anymore. They're being taught sight words and guessing, like reading a picture. So then the goal is for you to memorize every word in the English language.
That's actually... What about people who have learning disabilities who can't?
Yeah. It's a fucking riot.
Wow. Yeah, and with my niece, when we would sit down, like even to this day, if she comes over, I love doing word searches. My grandma did word searches, so it's like my way of honoring her. I have her help me, and I'll spell out, we do all CH. What does CH say? You know, like I do
Yeah.
all of that with her. Like I don't just tell her what's this. You know what I mean? It's like I walk her through the steps of each word.
No, my
And then
mom,
she finds it on the first try after
yes.
I've done that with her. She's so fucking
So
smart.
I'm a former educator. My mom and my sister are still educators. We are forever screaming about how we teach kids to read now because it's
Mhm.
almost like we're trying to teach them quickly
Yeah.
so they're good at the tests. And if you teach someone quickly how to read, I understand why people aren't reading in large mass anymore because it has to be stressful
Right.
be able to not be able to look at a word and try your best to sound
Figure it
it
out.
out.
Yeah. Gosh,
So,
that's heartbreaking.
and like you, I grew up as a reader. Like that's how I connected to my mom and my dad. We would
Same.
read books
Mhm.
and my mom would take me to Barnes and Noble and I would pick an age appropriate book and then she'd be like, "Mm-mm, that's too short. You will read it in 2 days. We will be back here.
Yeah.
Get a bit larger book." And be like, "Okay." Have to go find the biggest book that they had in the
Right,
children's
right.
section. And I was reading at a collegiate level in the 4th grade
Yeah,
back.
we did my mom did we rented from the library, we bought books, like, it was a big
Yeah.
deal. For my son's first birthday and actually at the baby shower too, I asked everyone to bring their favorite children's book.
Yeah.
We read with him every single night.
Yeah.
You're right, though. I did go through this training where she gave us the breakdown. Again, studies, nobody gives a shit about studies, but the average child, he at the time, this is 10 years ago, heard like it was like an ungodly low amount. Like if you didn't read to your kid, the average word amount of words they heard in a day was like
Yeah. 22.
yeah, I was gonna say like 20,
Yeah.
200, 20, 2000, whatever. It was really low. And then if you read to your kids, you know, and it's a higher number, and then that just elevates them so quickly with just what they're able to do to articulate and all these things. And it blew my mind that people don't read with their kids. And I don't mean like I mean like even educated people
Yeah.
because the students I taught were college dropouts, probably had a learning disability that went undiagnosed, you know, kind of we're in a farming community, so a lot of farm laborers who didn't finish school. But then when I'd get the kids whose parents were like middle class who never
Mhm.
read to them, I thought, really? Like, not even in the middle class, we're not reading to our kids? Like,
Well, but why would you read to your kid if reading is such a chore for you? It's like one of those things where if you
yeah,
don't love it, you don't do it.
I guess my shock at the time, which I've evolved since then, I would just like to preface that, was we would have people who would be like managers at the government.
Mhm.
You know, they're in a managerial position of some kind. They're in a white collar job who aren't reading to their children.
Yeah.
Whereas we assume and associate lack of reading skills with blue collar jobs.
Correct.
So I guess when I was working in the industry in adult education and I'd have students whose parents had white collar jobs, that was why I think I was surprised cuz like in my assumption of your stereotype, you should know how to read.
Yeah.
But at the same time, in my city, it's not that hard to become a manager if you've been there long enough. Doesn't
And
matter
I
if you're
think
qualified.
what's also happening, and we've seen it happening for years, it's not just new with the League of Their Own Prime show, is no one wants a show that's gonna be complicated, so we
Mhm,
just spoon feed them everything.
mhm. Yeah, but you can spoon feed everything and still have a movie that's good, Top Gun: Maverick.
I didn't see it
You don't have to. I actually think it might make you angry, um,
because I
because
don't like
Tom
Tom Cruise.
'cause Tom Cruise's character
He's so
hasn't grown in
creepy.
35 years. He's still
So
a, you
creepy.
know, huffy puffy, I'm right
Yeah.
guy, but it's still an enjoyable movie because they're so committed to the plot. There's nothing complicated about it. The acting's pretty decent, and they give us a beach scene where everyone's half naked with all them abs. So I'm not mad at it.
Bodies, Bodies, Bodies was a very simple story, and yet I was tense the entire time.
Yeah, see, there's another example, right? Like that was a good movie.
And then we see
Because
Don't
you know I'm
Worry,
not gonna watch it.
I know. And then we see Don't Worry, Darling, and we see these places where people refuse to fill in the holes for themselves.
Yeah.
So they're mad at Olivia Wilde for not telling them.
Yeah.
To which I would argue, and I haven't made this argument yet to the people who just scream at me that there were so many holes in that movie. That
Mhm.
movie, you're living as Alice. So what
Yes,
Alice knows, you know. And
correct.
there were things that she had time to try and figure out and discover. And then there were things that she didn't have time to figure out and discover. Like people are
Right.
like, why didn't we go in deeper as to why Olivia Wilde would choose this? Because we didn't have the time. We were going to be murdered.
Right.
Why don't we know where the men got this information? Because Alice doesn't know. We lived that movie through Alice.
Right.
We forget that our narrator is where we get our information.
Yeah, and we're so used to the viewpoint of we know everything. Like the
Yes.
narrator knows everything.
Yes.
And I don't particularly care for that style. Even when I was studying it in school and even in high school, all through it, like I was just like, I don't want, give me the narrator who's unstable,
Are you the one? No. Who just told me that they
unreliable.
don't like unreliable narrators?
Oh no, I'm here for an unreliable narrator.
It must have been one of my friends that I was out to dinner with. And then they were like, Holden, the kid in the
Hold it.
Catcher in the Rye who I can't fucking stand.
Yeah, he's the worst.
They were like, "He's fine because he's a teenager." I go, "Well, he's a teenager that'll grow into an abusive old man."
He's
Like,
not fine because he's a teenager. Look, it is 6 o'clock. We don't have that kind of time for you to tell me who that was so I could yell at them in the DMs about that.
okay. I don't even remember who it was. This has been our discovery of A League of Their Own. Let's do our last question. Jules, were you still comfy with the movie?
I was. I was. Because all the things that I was like icky, it was like, well, it's 1941. So that's
Right.
why it's icky.
And I think sometimes we lose sight of if there's no ickiness, then we don't know what's icky and what isn't icky anymore. Like
Yeah.
sometimes there has to be ickiness put into a plot point or a story so we can go, "Oh my god, that's icky." And
Yeah.
then we
And
start to read our reactions.
yeah. And when I say icky, I mean things like when Doris's dad slut shames May,
Yeah, but
when
dad still be slut shaming.
yeah, exactly. Or when like they're all constantly referring to the women as girls, like that kind of stuff. Where just like, okay,
Yeah,
that's icky, but it's not like so icky that you're just like, I can't hang.
right.
Because again, it's I don't want to say accurate to the time period, but it makes it more authentic at least, I think.
Yeah. I think we get hung up on a lot of things of like, we fixed that. It shouldn't
Mhm.
be in a movie anymore. And I'm like, we haven't fixed sexual assault. Re-release Thelma and Louise right now. Every woman's gonna have something to say about how it's true.
And men still refer to women as
As
girls,
girls.
even though they're grown ass women.
And daddy still slut shame your friends.
Yeah.
Like, and people still would have judged Marla on her looks. If part of your job was being good looking, Marla wouldn't have gotten hired.
Right.
So
Marla Hooch.
Marla Hooch.
I love
She's
that
kind of
one.
my favorite.
She's the best.
Her and Madonna. Oh my
Oh,
gosh. And Rosie's just so fun in this
Rosie's
movie.
so fucking fun.
Why didn't Rosie and Madonna just become a power duo who was in every movie together?
I don't think that Madonna wanted to because do you remember when she'd come on Rosie's show? They were friends in real life.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Maybe
I
Madonna didn't want to act. Maybe you don't have to do it all, Harry
yeah.
Styles. And maybe you shouldn't.
Maybe.
I am also still comfy with the movie. The movie still makes me warm and gooey. It still makes me go, ugh, men in all of the
Mhm.
right places.
Yeah.
Tom Hanks is disgusting and I love it. I
Yeah.
love a disgusting, sloppy Tom Hanks.
Yep.
And Gina Davis is gorgeous. And
Bill Pullman is
they're all
fucking hot.
and Bill Pullman is so fucking fine in that movie. Just like I even feel like they fucked with the lighting around him. So they'd be like, see how gorgeous he is.
I mean, if you can pull off the Bill Pullman high cutie to me,
Oh
I
god.
might cave
I might
and
start
get
dating
married.
men again. It's sweater season. I've already told men who have been putting on their cardigans, I'm like, nothing makes me reconsider dating men again. Like a fucking cable knit sweater. I go, however, neither one of us is going to be happy because no man can penetrate me until I get my bodily autonomy back.
Yeah.
Do you hear me, Congress? No one gets to ejaculate anywhere near me until I get my bodily autonomy back.
Also, California, we have a bill coming up on the ballot, a proposition rather, that keeps it protected in our state. So you know what to do, California. Don't fuck it up.
Don't fuck it up. Don't fuck it up. Because I will make all of California suck starve you. It's my new platform.
It's a lot of people here. There's 40 million people in this state.
We sex starve the people who took away our bodily autonomy. We sex starve them until they give it back. Jules, tell the people where they can find you.
Friends, I'm on Instagram. I have a couple. The Julia Washington for book reviews and me just being sometimes a hot mess or really put together and beautiful. It just depends on the day. If you love the concept of my show, Pop Culture Makes Me Jealous, where we analyze pop culture through the lens of race or gender and sometimes both, you can find us on the gram. Pop Culture Makes Me Jealous. We this week are dropping a Still Comfy episode, but also a teaser, because next week we will start kicking off season 4, where we analyze representation of wealthy women in the media.
Yep.
And it's going to be fun. Natalie's going to be on. She's on episode 3, where we talk about the American crime story, the impeachment scandal.
I'm going to be on
You're actually going to be in a lot of episodes, but the only one we've officially recorded.
A wealthy woman.
Yeah, because the only episode we've officially recorded is the American crime story. Correct. We're still coordinating all the other recording times.
Because it'll be fun. We'll do it in groups. It'll be fun. I just try to co-produce your show, I'm like, this is what you should do.
Yeah.
I've had an idea.
You're not the only one, though. It happens actually a lot. I get a lot of people in my DMs who are like, I have an idea. I'm like, let me hear it,
Well, you know what? I would love for my audience to start doing the work for me. If you have a story of everyday misogyny and you don't want to say it on Instagram or on a hot mic, you can DM it to me and I will find someone else who has an adjacent story to yours. And we will do an entire episode about the misogyny that you yourself have experienced. Because that's the whole point of To All the Men I've Tolerated Before, that our stories of everyday misogyny get told, because we like to pretend that misogyny just is fixed. Like, women get to work and vote now. What more do we want?
Not for long if you're in Georgia.
Oh, God.
Or Mississippi, they're coming for you.
They're coming for all of us. The war of women is secretly gaining ground. Never forget it. It's my last thought that I think as I fall asleep, and it's the first thought that I think of when I wake up. We are living in a war against women and femme-presenting humans and anyone who isn't a white, cis, straight man.
Speaking of, everybody needs to go see Bros.
Go see Bros. I'm seeing it on Wednesday.
Like, everybody go
see Bros.
They only made $4 million opening weekend, and that breaks my heart.
What? Billy Eichner tried so hard.
That movie is fucking perfect, and everyone needs to go see it. Everyone needs to go see it. If you claim to be a rom-com lover and you haven't seen Bros yet, I know you're going on Wednesday, you told me.
I know.
Everyone else, if you claim to be a rom-com lover and you don't have a ticket to see Bros or haven't seen it yet, you are failing the system. Go see Bros. It's perfect. It's one Frozen.
You're letting the patriarchy win if you don't see Bros. You're letting the patriarchy win if you don't see Bros. I'm honestly gonna text that to Billy Eichner in case he wants to make it a t-shirt.
And here's the thing, guys. We all know it is universally understood that When Harry Met Sally is the best rom-com of all time. This movie has When Harry Met Sally likeness without
Mhm.
being derivative. It's fucking perfect. Go
Mhm.
see it.
Let me tell you something. Boys get to kiss boys, girls get to kiss girls. You'll watch it in the movies, and sometimes you won't even know if they identify as a boy or a girl, and they get to kiss too in the movies. Everybody gets to kiss in the movies. Everybody gets to make that one of your t-shirts, Jules. Everybody gets to kiss in the movies.
I think I will.
Anyways, Tell All the Men I've Tolerated Before is your platform where you get to tell us about everyday misogyny. Last week we were putting Sean Hunter and Dawson Leary on trial because they treated women badly in the 90s and they needed to pay for their crimes. This week I am doing an episode with a woman who has built her entire career around teaching women like me how to trust themselves, with a special focus on trusting your sexuality and your sexuality ideals, I guess is the word I'm going to use. So tune in. It's every Thursday. We are on Patreon. We are on Instagram at Men I've Tolerated Pod. I am on Instagram and TikTok at Natalie K124. There is no shortage of me on the internet. Last night, I told a Fred not to cry that I couldn't go to trivia on Wednesday because I'm seeing bros and he may miss me. And he said, don't worry, I could always listen to your podcast.
Oh, I love that.
And everyone, tomorrow night, we'll be on Instagram Live talking about the one and only One Tree Hill and season 2 and all of these fuck boys that they've incorporated into my show. And we're going to be on the river court. So tomorrow night, we'll see you on the river court, and stay cozy, stay comfy. I almost want to add San Francisco like I'm fucking Will
Like
Ferrell.
we're on the news or something.
Yeah. Stay cozy, stay comfy.
Enjoy the weather.
Enjoy the weather.
Stay comfy, stay cozy, San Francisco. Yeah.
Like